DC Multiverse!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Brad, the DC Universe Geek, and today we're going to be having a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse John Kent DC Future State Superman. So this figure is a mixed bag of, yeah, that's pretty good, and what the
Bruh.
You're wondering why I say that? Well, stick around to find out. Okay, so the figure comes with a trading card, as usual, with a digitally rendered image of what the figure was intended to look like, an extra pair of flight hands, and a flight base. A close-up of the trading card will reveal that it is exactly the same as the back of the box, as usual. And here's the bio. You could pause to read that if you'd like to. As usual, if not, we'll move on to the figure, which, first of all, the color scheme looks really good. I actually really do like this shade of blue with this shade of red together. Combine that with the nice bright yellow, and as far as this figure goes, color-wise, we have a winning combination. I also very much like the fact that they made John Kent a much more slender build than his father, Supes. That makes sense. He wasn't exactly such a thick guy in Superman, Son of Metropolis, and nor is he currently in the comics. Which, if I'm being honest, that leads us to point number one. This is pretty much what his suit is currently in comic book continuity. At one point he wore this suit, and that was the one that he wore when he first got back from traveling around with Jor-El after being held captive by Ultraman. And then he wore this super suit, which I think was a bit of a fan favorite. It might be a little bit busy, but it wasn't a terrible suit. And then just before his father, Clark, left to go off to Warworld to try to liberate those who had been oppressed, he left him this suit. And I feel like, you know, it's okay. It's a much more simpler suit, and it's probably a heck of a lot less of a hassle for artists to draw. So even though this is technically future state John Kent Superman, this is also current modern day Superman, son of Kal-El John Kent. Where things get a little bit weird is, for one, the head sculpt is, well, I mean, it could be a lot worse, and I know what he's going for. Like, this is exactly out of the source material. So he actually did a good job in recreating the source material, so there's no complaints there. I'm not a big fan of having heat vision eyes, you know. You guys have heard me talk on this so many times. Heat vision eyes should be an alternate head, not the main head in my opinion. However, the emblem is definitely wonky. It's plastic over top of the yellow and the blue, so you can see it on the back here, and then up over the shoulders, above that socket, and then down here below to the bottom of his chest piece here, at his abdomen. It sits over top, and the problem is you can have these cracks. I'm not sure if you can see that. That doesn't really line up. And to be honest, on one that I've customed here, you can see there's the same issue. There's a big crack there. So really take a moment to look at yours in the store. And yes, I did swap the head from the DC Collectibles Superboy figure, and I feel like this one just looks a lot better. I mean, you be the judge yourself, but I don't know. I do like this head sculpt on the body better than this one. And personally, I feel like the John Kent head actually works really, really well as a blowing in the wind, fired up looking Superboy Prime head sculpt. Also, the muscle structure on this guy, it just looks weird. Like, it doesn't look, I won't say bad. Like, I don't look at this and think bad. I just look at it and think it looks weird. Like, it doesn't look like really anything else Todd has produced. These muscles are really sculpted, almost comic book looking. Also, he's got these weird lines right here that go all the way down. Everything is just really, really defined, and it's just odd looking as far as I'm concerned. Also, on this Superboy, my bicep swivels, although they work like that, on my previous one they didn't. And you can see how it looks like they've just been kind of painted shut. But I actually did a boil and pop on him. And this, I mean, when it finally did come out more, there's this big ugly gap, and it still properly won't turn without breaking the plastic nub inside of there. So while this does turn now, it really is kind of, it's unsightly and ugly looking. And finally, the wrists look really strange. I mean, you can really see how short his shirt looks, and then you've got this ball joint that, I mean, honestly, it doesn't even have to be this big. I mean, nobody ever poses their figures with you know, the wrist joints like that, or I would say probably very few pose them quite like that. It just doesn't look right. While this one does kind of look like he's wearing a pair of underwear that is way too big for him, or perhaps a pair of Huggies, my first one doesn't actually look like that. The first one is actually, it's a lot better. So I imagine it comes from him being in the package, and you know, a little date with some boiling water will probably just get the plastic to relax back to its first natural state that it was molded in. I do wish that his boots were perhaps a little bit taller, a little bit longer. These seem to be a little bit short, and although the ball hinges have been kind of sculpted to not look like they're just round, you know, joints, rounded hinges there, you could still, they're still very noticeable. So in this case, it's clear they've gone with, you know, function over form. Or rather, as you can see, it's like they've tried to marry what they would consider the best of both worlds. As for articulation, I think it's actually pretty good for the most part. The head is on that rounded ball joint. Now, he does get a lot of, you know, looking around and, you know, bibbly-bobbly motion, but you will not get that much back. So therefore, his flight poses are going to be 100% pretty much reliant on his little abdomen articulation here, the little, I guess, the rounded crunch, and you can see a nice line there. That looks good, right? So that's as close as you're going to get to a flight pose with this guy, at least as far as his body. His arms, they actually are really well articulated, so there's no frustration there for me all around, whether it's the shoulder, the little socket actually does a good job. Bicep swivel looks ugly, but still does work very well. Excellent double jointed elbows. I mean, if articulation and not form is your thing, I mean, the wrists do have a lot of articulation. The waist is a little tight, but that's okay. I don't like my figures loose and wobbly. You also do have this typical setup down here for the groin, which is, I mean, that's pretty darn good. And there actually is a lot of motion like this too. So I don't mind the fact there's no thigh cut. Double jointed knees, and they're very crunchy. They go right calf to the back of his leg, and then you've got these rounded hinges with, of course, a pivot and toe articulation. As usual, that one, oh goodness. Wow. That was tight articulation. You can see where it's been pretty much painted shut. At least it works now. So what do I think about old Johnny Boy here? Is he a good figure, a great figure, an excellent figure, or a shite figure, a garbage figure, a trash figure? That all depends on what your viewpoint is and what your tolerance level is for some of the weirdness that is this figure. I do happen to really like him, and I really like John Kent. I will no doubt end up customizing a cape on this figure. I will probably end up painting those rounded hinges in his wrists, and then I'll heat up the chest insignia and see if I can maybe push it around a little bit to get it a little bit more better set where it's supposed to be. But that's me. I do a lot of custom work, so I'm okay with things like that. The reality is you should not have to get your figure out of the package and do a bunch of stuff to make it pose/play ready. I do kind of hope that they come out with another version of him that has a cape and a different head sculpt. I think that would be even better. But if they don't, I'm happy with this one. I would give this figure probably I don't know, a 6 out of 10. That's probably the best I can do. Anyway, that is my story. I'm sticking to it. Hopefully you found this video to be an interesting, insightful, useful waste of time. You know the drill. If you've enjoyed this, feel free to click like. If you're not subscribed, feel free to do that, or not. Do whatever you want to do. It's your life. Anyway, okay, I'm done. Take care. Bye for now.